Welcome to Live from My Office, a special Father's Day weekend edition, and I hope you have great memories of your dad if your dad's no longer with you, and I hope you got lots of pictures and family and stories you can tell. I know that's not true for every family or every relationship, but on this podcast, we're going to focus on some dad friends of mine and on my son, who I've told you before is the greatest dad I've seen, and he and I are going to kick it off in just a second and have a conversation about being a dad. But just know that I feel for you if you're missing your dad, or if you never had that great relationship with your dad. And I'm just thinking about you, that's all. And I hope it's a great weekend either way. All right, so this is all sponsored by David Hochberg, Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID and 56david.com. Find Dad himself, by the way, Mr. Hochberg is. In addition to that, we ask you to look at the notes, the show notes. We post them wherever the podcast lives, wherever you pick it up and hear it. And check out the show notes for links to all the people you hear on these shows, whatever project they're currently involved in, and social media links and things of that nature. And lastly, I'd remind you to drop me an email anytime about anything at thecochranshow@gmail.com. Now, let me go live to the producer, the executive producer of Live from My Office. Did I forget anything in setting this up?
No, that was really good. I'm not gonna have to edit very much of that at all.
Yeah, which is one of your dreams.
One of my dreams, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the voice you hear is my son, Ross Cochran. Happy Father's Day weekend.
Happy Father's Day weekend to you. I'm happy to be here.
Good to hear. And you know, I mean that.
Yes.
I mean that when I say you are the best dad I've seen. And it
Thank
makes
you.
me feel awfully good to say that because, well, you're my kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So-
no, I had a good teacher in that regard.
So here's the deal. I thought we'd go through the 5 questions I sent out to some of my friends, and you'll hear their answers again later in this podcast.
Like all of your interviews, this is very highly scripted.
Totally.
You always prep all your questions in advance.
This conversation is all on prompter. We're reading it right now. But that's part of my charm. But I'm going to go through these questions. You and I can kick them back and forth. You like that idea?
I do.
All right. Question number 1. What's the best or most important thing you learned from your dad? You want to go first? You want me to
I'll go first.
Okay.
So one of the things that I've noticed now, because Lauren and I were kind of ahead of the curve as far as having kids, starting our families, so a lot of my friends now are getting into that. And I realized that the idea of just showing up being enough is a concept that lots of people had to learn that I don't feel like I ever had to learn. Like I remember little things like you being able to come to a Little League game while you were doing afternoons, mm-hmm. right? So like you weren't there in the beginning, but you were there. Or, the ability for you to know what, how to balance what I needed with homework or that kind of thing. Like, I think a lot of dads from my generation in particular feel like they have to have it all figured out. And what I try to keep preaching to them is, no, your kid, I heard Jerry Seinfeld say it, like, your kid doesn't need you to know everything. They just need you.
Yeah, and that's well said. And that means a lot to hear you say that. It starts with showing up.
Yeah.
Everything after showing up is extra, but you got to be there whenever you can. I'm going to confess something that you already know, however, and that is your play. Was it your 5th grade play? Where I was.
Yes, where I was.
You played Santa, right?
I was Santa Claus, dear listener.
Right, and I was invited to play
the role of a lifetime.
I was invited to play at a very prestigious golf tournament in Palm Springs, California.
Yeah.
And I paid to have the thing videotaped and copies made for this is back in the era where people had VCRs. Mm-hmm. And paid to have copies made for all the parents who, by the way, could have afforded their own damn tapes. And handed them out to somehow assuage my guilt for not being there. But I don't think I missed many. I didn't miss many things.
No, you really didn't. And I think a lot of folks feel like, friends of mine who, like you were alluding to at the top, like didn't necessarily have the best relationships with their dad. What I wish that they could have experienced was just like, actually just being there. It doesn't cover everything, right? Like you have to show interest, you have to be involved, all that. But like the bar is so low for dads. Like I'm a new dad relatively, right? Like I'm experiencing what that looks like for Lauren and like young moms, and where it's like, you you have to work full time and be home full time and do all these things. And there's all this pressure. And for dads, really, it's like, if you just show up, it solves 80% of the problems.
Well, and if you show up, you care enough to be where you want to be and you want to be involved. And there's nothing but good things that come from there.
Right.
And by the way, the bar's low for us because we help manipulate it to that point.
Yeah, no, deservingly so. Yeah.
And as you know, my relationship with your grandfather, who you never got to meet because he passed 3 months before you were born.
But I'm named after him.
In a way, his name was Ralph Albert. We wanted to pay some kind of tribute to him, and we didn't want to saddle you with the names Ralph or Albert. Mm-hmm. Apologies if any of you are named either of those things. So that's why you got the name Ross Adam. At least we got the initials in. Mm-hmm. All right, so here's the deal with my dad. My dad and I wish we had a closer relationship. We didn't.
Right.
I've told the story a million times, but for those that aren't familiar, he was 40 when I was adopted. He was a bring home the bacon World War II guy. And there just wasn't a lot of, warmth there. I don't think he ever planned on being a dad. My mom and he couldn't conceive kids naturally, or whatever the current term of art is in that regard. But they had an opportunity to adopt, and they adopted my brother first and then me a couple of years later. Having said all that, I learned things from him by observation. So the answer to the question, what's the most important thing you learn from your dad? I would say it's this. Sacrificing for your family isn't sacrifice. It's what you do.
Sure.
He may not have been geared to be the best dad or equipped to be the best dad, but he did what a good dad would do in that he went to work. He provided for his family. He never made more than $25,000 a year. I had no idea we were poor.
Right.
There was always food on the table. We had a car to go places, even though I had to get to practice by myself. And I think that responsibility that we make part of being a man is an important aspect of it. And that's one of the things I learned from him. I learned hard work and patriotism and love of country and respect for the military and those things from afar. But yeah, people say I sacrifice this or that for my kids. When you do it for your family, it's not a sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's what you do. Question number 2. When did you really feel for the first time like you were a dad? I'll take this one first. Since your sister's older, it was with her.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And she was born 7 weeks premature. Mm-hmm. And she had to be taken to the NICU immediately. Well, not immediately, but very quickly after she was born. Because she was 7 weeks preemie, to keep her warm and keep an eye on her and all those things. Your mom was not in any position to get out of bed and go with her. So I was.
Right.
And I just remember riding up in the elevator and thinking, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is real. Mm-hmm. And obviously being worried, but really having a sense of calm because of my own faith that she was going to be okay.
Right.
But yeah, that was it. That was at the ride in the elevator. What about you?
I have 2 that stand out to me. So about a week after Abigail, who's 5.5 now, was born, we had gone to church, and she's in her car seat. She's asleep in church, and someone steps over her car seat. They were nowhere near actually hitting her. They're very aware of her, but having someone, and she's a few feet away from me, having someone invade Abigail's personal space. Yep. Felt like they had invaded my personal space. I had the exact same physical reaction. And it was that moment of oh, wow, that's what this connection feels like. And
that's when you punched the dude?
Yeah, then I got kicked out of that church. But even before that, I don't know if I've ever told the story. So, like you're saying, you have that moment of oh, this is real. And I go to get the car. We're discharged from the hospital. Lauren and Abigail come down, put Abigail in the car seat. I'm looking at this process oh my gosh, we're about to take this child home. And we start driving. For people who are from Chicago, we're about to get on Lakeshore Drive. And I look and I realize that Abigail's door wasn't shut all the way.
Oh, you're kidding. I don't know the story. Really?
And it was this wonderful, to juxtapose those 2 things. That's so much of what being a dad is, right? That moment of I must protect my child. And then just dumb goofiness of
right.
Oh, whoops.
Close the door.
Close the door. So those 2 things I think really encompass that's what I knew. That's when I had arrived. But part of having a great dad growing up, like I always wanted to do this, and the benefit of marrying someone who always wanted to be a mom is like we always felt like parents. We always felt like this made sense to us in a way that I think for some people it is this sort of like shock of like, what do I do now? For us, it was always like, what do I do now with this person?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's well said. And look, you have taken on the dad role and Lauren the mom role really readily. You probably more seriously in that you're only 30, but you have a bad back. So there's that. Question.
Can I just briefly tell a quick story of the affirmation that I received as a parent from you and mom, which is there was a moment where the two of you, I think it was just me here, and maybe I like put Abigail down or something like that. And you guys made sure to like stop me and were like, "You're really good at this."
Yeah.
And then you were like, I expected like you guys, like you and Lauren to be really good at this, but you're really good at this.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Your mom may be more surprised at that, and I don't think I've told you this. I've never been surprised.
Sure.
It's just been great to see.
Yeah.
You know, as a father, to see your grown son be a great dad, I don't think there's anything better than that.
Yeah. All right. Question number 3.
What do you hope your kids remember most or best about you? You go.
So right now, what's really cool is even with the sort of cushy job that I have where I'm able to work from home a bunch, having the pandemic happen, I realized that like I got a sort of fast track to sort of an individual relationship with my kids where, you know, a
lot of people I think did.
Yeah. They both adore Lauren, and Lauren's still clearly the favorite parent. They're both mama's kids.
You're both a favorite parent.
But what's been so cool, especially lately, is to see the ways in which they get like who I am, what I bring to the table kind of thing. So I hope that what they remember and feel like is that there's this expression that I like, which is you parent each kid each year. And I hope that that's what they feel, that Abigail feels like I saw her for who she is and who God made her to be. And Isaac feels like I saw him for who he is and who God made him to be.
Well, didn't you find it to be true, the thing that I said from the moment that you and Lauren said that you were pregnant the first time? And by the way, she was pregnant.
Yeah, no,
yeah. I'm not a big subscriber to the "we're pregnant."
We're
thing.
pregnant.
Yeah,
no, you're
yeah,
not.
Yeah.
No, you're not, man.
But you remember what I said was for the first 2.5 years, it'll marginally be about you.
Right.
But then one day the kids will look at you, or the kid in that case, and go, "That guy's cool, and he's here every day."
Yeah.
There is that crossing over period. It's not exactly at 2.5, but there's hope for you young dads who might be listening who are going, "I'm just like a bystander here. It doesn't last. No, you're about to be the hero."
Yeah, it really doesn't. And I think too, when you're able to be like physically around, like the pandemic forced us to be, you get fast tracked. Like I'm there with Isaac at 1.5, and it was 2.5 when that happened for Abigail.
This is kind of a risky one for me because you and I have never talked about this, but what I hope you and Amy remember most about me being a dad is, besides the nice things you've already said, some of which are true, that we had a lot of laughs.
Yeah.
And we still do. I think the family is based in funny. Everybody is funny. You laugh through some really tough times. You say some dark things that are inside family funny. But I hope that's a positive memory and a consistent one.
For sure. And I think too, like again, I realized as I grew up is I'm like, oh, like not every family's dinner table is as funny as ours.
Right.
Like you're like, oh, like the whole thing is just always jokes and like all day, the entire time.
Well, you know what they say, when you have family feelings and discussions you should have, force it down or make it funny.
Yep, exactly. All right. So what's the best and or worst advice you gave or got as a dad or from your own father?
See, my father didn't give advice to me.
What?
No.
It's brand new information.
Actually, you know what? I will tell you this. His advice to me was usually put in some form, and this is not whining, I'm smiling as I say this, but was put in some form of disappointment in me.
Okay.
Like, for instance, I ran out of gas a few times when I was a kid, 16, 17, 18 years old. And he was MacGyver. He could build a car with a paper clip. He could fix a house. He could rewire a house. He could do all those things. But I couldn't find a tool that he needed.
Right.
And then, you felt like Bruce Willis in Die Hard. Do I cut the red wire or the green wire?
Right.
But in the case of what he taught me was don't let the car run out of gas, because all the junk in the bottom of the tank gets sucked into the engine, and that's where your trouble starts. I think I ran out of gas a couple more times after.
Yeah,
that,
no, I think so.
But not a lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot. But what the best advice or worst advice I ever gave you? You and I have a running joke about this.
Yes.
And that is take an extra ball with you, because long after you knew how to play golf, you hit a ball behind a green where there was a creek.
Yep.
And I literally looked at you and said, you should probably bring an extra ball, in case you had lost it.
Yeah. No, the way you're selling that short was this thing of like, I had an extra ball. I was very aware that I was the one who had hit a bad golf shot. And you tell me to bring, it's become this thing of whenever you're sort of over coaching, that's what happens. But I think the worst advice about being a dad though is the conversation around being a dad of like, now you got tricked, like you got trapped into parenthood is so frustrating to me, because I think we don't, as parents broadly, but especially as dads, there's not enough people talking about how awesome being a dad is. One of the reasons why I was excited to do the episode this way is because we should talk about this more. Like we should talk more about the way that your kids, my kids, anybody's kids are the greatest thing ever, because the conversation gets so stilted in how hard it is to be a parent that people who are experiencing good feel like they can't talk about it, and the people who are experiencing bad feel like they're alone.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny, and maybe it's a little generational, but I think too many times, and I think this is where you're going too, parents don't go on and on about their kids outside of their own family as much, because people don't want to hear bragging about your kid. But if you're struggling with your kid, there's some entertainment value in that.
Yeah, like there's some sort of like, so hard, and like we want to share in that. But it's not even like bragging about your kid. It's like talking about how this positive interaction with your kid made you feel.
Sure.
Right? Like watching even the silliest things, like watching Abigail say something to Isaac that I have said to Abigail, like some dumb bit, and watching Abigail do her version of that dumb bit to 100%. Isaac is the greatest thing in the world.
I remember the first time you did that to me, where there's that moment where you go, a little credit up in here. It was my words. But to hear it, and I've talked to other dads about this recently even, to see your kid regurgitate something you didn't even think they were listening to when you said it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But there's nothing better than being a dad. There's nothing close.
Yep.
And I had no idea. You actually were helpful with little babies and kids here and there. I never had that opportunity and didn't want it.
Right.
But I drive people crazy talking about you guys when you were younger, and talking about my grandkids now, your kids. I think I told you. I've had strangers in elevators where I've shown them pictures on my phones. I go, hey, creepy old guy, can I get off the elevator now? Yeah, that's a cute kid. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, I do want to apologize to every cashier in the area.
I just hope every dad, and I know it's not possible, but I hope every dad feels as good about your kids or your grandkids as I do, and as you do about your kids.
And that they say it too.
Yeah, right. Say it and experience it. All right. What's something that I said that you now say to your kids and you can't believe you're doing it?
This one was hard because I think considering the fact that I fell backwards into the family business, there's so much of my life where I'm like, oh yeah, like this came from a dad, that I don't have that sort of like, oh man, like I'm becoming my father kind of feelings.
Sure.
But I think that with Abigail especially, because Abigail loves to ask questions. Mm-hmm. She loves, like most kids, loves to sort of figure out the why. She really wants to know. And what I find amusing is how quickly my brain goes to like, just say, because I told you so. And I don't think you ever said, because I told you so, but I do think that like it's helpful to be reminded of ways in which we're all like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm just trying to figure it out just like you are.
Right.
But yeah, I really couldn't think of something, and I may cut this whole section because of that.
No, it's totally fine, because I can tell you in the case of my father, again, coming from a completely different generation, because he was 40 when I was adopted. He would say things that were really appropriate for people born in the 20s. Things like, I'm going to put the kibosh on that.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to stop it. But one thing that always stuck in my head was, don't take any wooden nickels. Mm-hmm. Now, he literally never looked me in the eye and said, don't take any wooden nickels, but I heard him say it a million times in different contexts. So I've taken the opportunity, son, to go to the Wikipedia to find out what the hell a wooden nickel is.
Okay, good.
In the United States, a wooden nickel is a wooden token coin, usually issued by a merchant or a bank. But it is also a phrase that can be used to express concern for the person it's being issued to about being careful in the circumstances they're going out into. It's a lighthearted reminder to be cautious in your dealings. So maybe secretly, your grandfather, my father, was saying, hey, this one's a little dopey.
Yeah.
Careful out there, son. Don't take any wooden nickels. Anything else you want to add about this Father's Day weekend?
No, I'm really excited to be able to celebrate the thing that is most important to me with the most important people in my life. And I hope that if you, listener, are a dad, you are able to feel like the celebration of what it means to be a dad. And I also hope that if you're a dad and like some of this is motivating of things that you need to say to your kids, that you take the opportunity to say it, you know, because I think the benefit, to go back to where we started from the bar being so low for us, is that you always have an opportunity to clear it.
Right.
Even if it's been a long time.
Well said. Let's take a break. We'll come back, and a whole bunch of my friends, and your friends too, are going to join us and talk about being a dad. We'll come back. More of Live from My Office. Happy Father's Day, son.
Happy Father's Day, Pops.
This is Live from My Office. If you're refinancing your existing home, do what I did when I needed to refi. I called Team Hochberg, a trusted local lender. Don wanted to refinance his 3.75% loan. He heard thousands of Team Hochberg ads. So he called Team Hochberg, right? Naturally. What? I'm being told that's not right. Wrong. Don called his current lender, who quoted a low rate with a closing cost of $3,400. Well, Don thought those costs were high, and he was right, so he called Team Hochberg. Should have done that in the first place. David explained to Don how his current lender was overcharging him. He helped him secure the same low rate and half the closing costs. So let's review. Don's current lender tried drilling him with excessive closing costs. Team Hochberg helped Don do the exact same rate and half the closing costs. Team Hochberg helped me and thousands of listeners, and like Don, doing things like securing low rates and low closing costs and saving stress in your life. Well, David Hochberg's there, and he just wants to save you a little money. 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. That number again is 855-563-2843 or 56david.com for Homeside Financial, an equal housing lender, NMLS number 1124061. Back on Live from My Office. Before we get to this compilation of dads, if you will, I want to read you an email I got. I've got a lot of responses to people saying, here's why my dad's better than your dad, tougher than your dad, cooler than your dad. Thank you all for submitting them and sending them in. This one struck me because I'm a fan of folks that protect us. And State Trooper Allie Renault has been a supporter and a listener for a long time, so I want to share it with you. She says, my dad passed from a heart aneurysm in January of 2000. What I remember best about him is he was such a supporter of me through thick and thin, from bad relationship choices to finances to job hopping, and, well, he became such a trooper groupie. He was so proud of me that I graduated from the Illinois State Police Academy, and one comment that really stood out to me, he pointed to the bags and pipes guys that performed at our graduation. He said, that's the last time I ever want to hear those guys. And he said, because the next time would be at her funeral if she were killed in the job. That'll stop you in your tracks. Now, Lisa says, thankfully, I survived a 25-year state trooper career. I'm now happily retired, and we thank you for all you did for us through all those years and what state troopers do all the time. In the meantime, we're going to get to that dad compilation, but I also want to get to the charity of the episode, and not surprisingly, this one is about dads. It's called Fathers Incorporated, and their entire mission is to promote responsible fatherhood. What do we know statistically? We know that kids are stronger and better and families are stronger and better with two parents involved. Doesn't mean they can't be divorced. Doesn't mean they have to even get along all the time. But to have a family unit that works and kids that grow up as healthy and happy as possible, you need dads. And next level fatherhood is what Fathers Incorporated is about and what they do. So you can find out more about them by going to fathersincorporated.com. There's lots of ways to help, as always. But if you want to do something as a legacy, if you will, for your own good fathering that you got or are giving, this might be a good way to do it. fathersincorporated.com. All right, on we go. Now, I asked several friends to jump in here. You may remember, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, that on Mother's Day, I had some great moms whose names you know and some who you might not have known, contribute and answer several questions. I cut the list of questions in half, or maybe a little more than half, because, well, we're men, and we have trouble focusing. Like I need to tell you women that. But there's a series of 5 questions. Ross and I discussed those in the first segment of this podcast. And I'm going to run through some of these, I should say. And some of the responses I got from this group, I think you'll enjoy it. First up, Paul Coit. Now, Paul Coit, my friend Paul Coit from London, has this beautiful accent that everybody loves, yet he submitted his answers in writing. I haven't had time to yell at him yet, but I loved his answers to the questions. And question number 1, what's the best thing you learned from your dad? He said, the most important thing I learned from my dad was to be around for your kids. Paul said, I love being a dad more than anything else in the world, so I want to spend as much time with my kids as I can until they realize that I'm not quite as cool as they thought I was once. I didn't become a dad until I was 38, had my crazy times, and was more than ready to embrace being a father when it arrived. And he's a great dad. I can tell you that, and I can vouch for him in that regard. John DeCoste, the musical director of this podcast, very funny comedian and a really good friend. John chimes in now with what he learned from his dad.
Best advice and worst advice I gave as a father. Best advice was, I think, when Christopher was going to attend college, he was going to choose one that was a lot less expensive, even though it wasn't the right fit. And I had to sit him down and go, listen, this is a moment. We've got it. You got to make the decision based on what's best, not what's most affordable. Worst advice I think I ever gave my son was I actually told him when he started to pick up the guitar, boy, music doesn't really run in the family. I don't know if this is going to work. And, that was bad. For my father, best advice that he gave me was that no matter what, I was going to get a college education. You know, I could make my call after that, but up until that point, I was going to get a college education. And that was good. That was good. Worst advice he ever gave me was he could not understand how I would ever be able to do any job, to work any place if I didn't own a suit. And it's become a joke, but I never, ever in my whole life owned a suit. And he, for the longest time, couldn't figure out how I was able to make any money with a suit.
And our friend David Hochberg, the title sponsor of Live from My Office. What about your dad, David?
Always give 110%, never give up, and always tell the truth.
Next up, Pat Brady.
The most important thing I learned from my dad was when my first daughter was born, he told me that this child did not choose to be born. It's your responsibility, which I thought was a good lesson.
Dr. Sam Ristich is one of the great veterinarians in America, and he lost his dad a while back. But I loved his advice that he got from his dad. Sam writes, Dad said, always shine your shoes for work, study hard, and take care of your mother. Some of that advice came as he was preparing to die. And Sam adds, my dad was extremely courageous when he was facing death. Eric Edelstein is one of the most influential Democrat political consultants in America. He took some advice from Dad and applied it to his own daughter. Listen.
I would say that the best piece of advice my father ever gave me was when he dropped me off at college, and I'll never forget it. It's one of the most vivid memories I've ever had. And he had helped me move in, and we were walking back to his car as he was getting ready to leave. And I was excited and nervous and had all that energy, getting ready to say goodbye to my dad and embark on this new adventure. And he turned to me and he said, be your own man. 4 words. And it was just so empowering in that moment. And I've never forgotten it. And I was proud 2 years ago when my daughter was in the same situation. And I had been waiting 18 years to impart that to her. And I was walking back to my car, having just moved her into college. And I turned and I said, be your own woman. And I burst into tears.
Emmy Award-winning TV producer David Wallach also joined in to talk to me about what his dad told him.
I think the best or most important thing I've ever learned from my dad was kindness. My dad grew up in the mountains of Peru and was homeless until he was about 10 years old. And he understands on a different level what kindness is and always went out of his way to share his kindness with other people. If it was giving them food or welcoming them into his home or even just helping them out on the street. My dad was always very kind in that regard.
Another comedian pal of mine is Tim Benker. And this is really sweet stuff that Tim Benker talks about when he talks about his own father.
I just want to reflect on how easy I have it as a dad compared to my father. I have 2 sons, aged 30 and 18. My dad had 7 children, and within a span of 12 years, he had those 7 kids, with my mom, of course. But no matter what was going on, somebody was going into high school and needed the money, or was starting college. This one needed medical attention. This one needed shoes. We all need to get dressed up for Easter. Those kind of things. And was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of stress, but he did it and he handled it well. And he always imparted some things to us that I could use, really. One of the most important things that he used to say was, no matter what you do, make sure you do it well. Even if you're digging ditches, make sure that they are good ditches. And I think about that a lot because a lot of times we phone in a lot of things that we do in life, whether it's important stuff with our family and our kids or our jobs or the simple things, just to do it well and do it the best that you can, and you feel a sense of pride in that. And the other thing that my dad said that I think about probably on a weekly basis to this day, when I told him that I was getting married to my wife Jeannie, we've been married 25 years now, I said, I just want to let you know that we're going to get married. And he said this: no matter what you do, love each other. And as simple as that sounds, that just has gone such a long way, because a lot of times that simple thought, that simple process gets lost in the everyday life. So I think about that and I thank him for it. And Dad's been gone for quite a few years now, but he's still with me all the time. So
before I play this clip from Mark Sapelsa, let me just say that his father was not Casey Kasem, but the advice was similar.
I think the best thing that I learned from my dad is the ability of the person to reach higher than they think they can. My dad had some success in music and success in sports, and when I saw scrapbooks and articles and such of his early days with the music and again with the sports, he played college basketball, I think it opened my eyes that, wow, maybe anybody can do this. I realized he had more talent than I did for music and sports, but it taught me that reach, baby. Reach higher than you think you can, and you might achieve something. So I think that was the most important thing. He kind of did it by example, by just, modestly saying, oh, yeah, I used to do this, and oh, yeah, I used to do that. And then I read about it and was blown away. So I think that's probably the most important lesson I learned from him. And it wasn't even something he said to me.
Mark Giangreco's dad had some pretty good fundamental advice as well. And it's all about your name is what matters. And when you lose what you did to build your name on, well, you've lost it all.
What's the best and most important thing I learned from my dad? Well, he always used to say, all you really have as a man is your reputation. I thought that was pretty profound. Plus, Mickey Mantle was the greatest baseball player of all time.
And finally, on question number one, comedian, television star Bill Leff, his TV show is Tune In With Me is on every morning on MeTV. It reminds me to tell you to check out the credits for all of our contributors and friends and check out everything in the show notes. It's a lot for this episode, and take a look at that wherever you're listening. All right, so Bill Leff. The most important thing I learned from my dad, Bill writes, and my mom, was to marry the right person. My parents were best friends, and they were made for each other. And while so many of my friends' parents were getting divorced, my parents just continued getting closer and better as the years went on. I realized that life would be so much better if I found the right person, and guess what? Somehow, I did. Moving on to question number 2 of the 5, I asked this great group of dads, and that question was, when did you first really feel like you were, in fact, a father? Dr. Sam Ristich, a veterinarian, writes, well, when I passed out in the delivery room with the birth of my first child, Anna. I got a little stronger with the subsequent births. And let me say this about Pat Brady as a dad. Pat lost his wife, and his kids lost their mom to cancer several years ago, and I am endlessly amazed at how he has adapted to being the great dad that he is and was, but probably didn't even know he was at the time. Here's a story about Pat about when he realized it was on him.
Shortly after my wife, their kid's mother, passed away, Julie, I went and bought tampons for my daughter at the store. That's when I felt really like a father.
And, of course, there's other ways to realize you're a dad when you become a dad, and one of those is you do things that you never thought you'd do. Right, John DeCoste?
When I try to think back of the first time that I realized I was a dad, it might have been sooner, but I do remember my son Christopher was in the car, and his nose was running, and I just put out my arm, and he got to wipe his nose all over my shirt. And I was okay with that. I was like, yeah, don't worry about it, buddy. And then we went home. So, yeah, that was the first time.
Paul Coit's answer kind of was a thread through all of our dads, too, when we talked about this. Paul writes, I first felt like a father, as obvious as it might sound, when my daughter was born and I held her for the first time. It took some time for the novelty to wear off, about 10 years. And when did Mark Giangreco first feel like a dad? Well, when he could fake his kids out.
I tell you, it was when I was able to actually comfort my kids by just pulling something out of my butt, saying something that really calmed them down. I mean, when something like that works, it's the best.
David Hochberg's dad moment, that moment of realization, and of course, it involves a tuna sandwich.
The first time was when I held our first daughter, Carly, in my arms after my wife gave birth. And it really, really, really hit me that I was a father as I was walking a Once Upon a Bagel in downtown Highland Park to get my wife a tuna fish sandwich because she loved tuna fish sandwiches and wasn't able to eat tuna during her pregnancy because of the mercury. I also couldn't eat tuna because she got mad at me when I ate tuna sandwiches in front of her. So when I bought 2 tuna fish sandwiches after she gave birth, as I was walking from the Highland Park Hospital to downtown Highland Park to Once Upon a Bagel in downtown Highland Park, it hit me like, holy crap, I'm a father.
And Bill F. writes on this question, it took my wife and I several years to conceive. We tried everything and with no results. And what was going to be our last round of fertility treatments, it finally took. The doctors told us the great news, and just hearing her say those words, you're going to be parents, changed everything. Then the other great news, we were going to have twins. We had waited for so long, and it didn't look very promising. But the second I heard those words, you're going to be parents, Bill says everything in the world just fit. Question number 3 is, what do you want your kids to remember about you? Or at least maybe what do you hope they remember about you? Again, Bill F., he writes, I hope they'll remember to never really grow up, because I haven't. Sure, I've gotten older, but the curiosity is still there. The imagination is still there. The urge to play is still there. And you can't lose those things. And for a comedian like John DeCoste, well, this answer probably is a little obvious.
The thing that I would like my son to remember about me is that I was fun. He would go to sleep at night, and I would take all of his stuffed animals and make them talk. I had different characters for each one, and then he would fall asleep. That I just did things different. I was more hands-on, more fun.
A good, strong, fundamental answer from David Hochberg to this question.
I hope my 3 daughters remember that I always loved and was proud of them, no matter what they did, what place they came in, or what grade they received.
Dr. Sam's hope for his kids to remember him, he says that I was strong when they were born and that I'm equally proud of their accomplishments. I guess we need to keep it a secret with Anna that he fainted. What about you, Mark Sapelsa?
You know what I hope my kids remember me for are the small things. I've been, since I've retired, I've been going through boxes of stuff and mementos and, things from work, things from personal adventures, things from personal little treasures. And, they don't have to keep anything of mine when I'm gone. They can donate it or throw it away. But maybe just the little things where, I didn't know Dad ran, half marathon up a mountain hill and, came in 3rd place. I didn't know Dad collected, keychains from ballparks, baseball parks all over the country. Just those little things about who I am. It's fine if they look at those old mementos from work where, Dad interviewed President Obama. Oh, whatever. Okay. Dad did this and Dad covered that World Series and Dad covered the Republican convention when, Reagan and Ford passed away. That's fine. But it's the little things. And I also hope that they remember me as being as good a person as I could possibly be in showing an example. And I'm certainly not perfect, and I've got a lot of foibles, and they've seen them at times. But in the end, I think I want them to say, "Boy, he was a good hang," and I liked hanging with my dad.
And how does Pat Brady want to be remembered? Well, he seems to be stuck on a theme.
I hope my girls remember that I actually went and bought tampons for them.
I've told this story before, so for those of you who've heard it, I apologize. But my friend Paul Conrad and I went to breakfast many years ago. Turns out about 18 years ago now. And he was very nervous about becoming a dad for the first time. He has turned out to be just one of the great dads ever. I couldn't be more proud of him. And tells a great story here. Listen.
When I think about what I want my kids to know about me when I'm long gone, and what I want them to believe and know is the depth that I loved them so completely, regardless of their successes or their failures, the depth of love that I have for them. and gratitude for them is really what I hope that they will always know. I work to drive that into their hearts today and have since the day they were born, because it's been true. I'm always amazed at the depth of love that I could have for somebody, and I have it for my kids, and it's what I want them to really know, that my love for them will always be endless.
David Wallach, time for you to chime in.
I hope when it's all said and done, my kids remember that I never broke a promise, that I was a man of my word. There was a moment in my life when I had nothing except my word, and I rebuilt my life from promising and making sure I lived up to those promises. And if you can live up to your word and you can be a better person every single day, that's my goal. And I tell my kids every single day, I just try to be a better person than I was the day before. And if they remember that and take that lesson in believing in yourself, you believe in yourself, you can do anything.
And good stuff here from Paul Coit again. Paul says, I hope that my kids would remember how much I love them, and that was proved through everything I did as a dad, and not just by telling them over and over and over again. And also that I was the person who made them laugh the most. You know, Paul, we're all needy. Question number 4 is, what's the best or worst advice you got from your dad or gave as a dad? David Wallach chose to tell us a little advice he got from his dad, and I just have a feeling he's still not listening.
Put on a hat. Put on a hat, you're going to freeze to death. Zipper up your jacket. I never wore a hat. I always had my jacket unzipped, and now I lose my mind on my kids. And I hear it coming out of my mouth, and I feel like it's actually my father channeling it, and the words are just coming out of me towards them. But those are the things that I say to my kids that my dad used to say to me that I can't wrap my mind around, that I'm saying it, even while I'm saying it.
Dr. Sam writes, his dad told him, life's all about balance. Don't work too hard, don't play too hard. And here's Pat Brady.
Let's get to the airport early so I can get a better seat.
The advice Paul Coit got from his dad is very British, so bear with me because we almost need a Rosetta Stone translation here. But Paul writes, the best advice I got was how to hit a great cricket shot by keeping your bat perfectly straight. But just like in life, my bat swung around a bit, but never feared too much from the middle. My dad, Paul writes, always insisted on good manners, and I insist on those too. It's very British, but I'm a stickler for pleases and thank yous. And I can tell you as his friend for telling me he's sorry. And everyone he's sorry. The Brits, they apologize a lot. Mark Chappelle's advice, yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
I think maybe the best advice that I got from my dad in terms of parenting was trusting your kids, trusting my kids to, mostly do the right thing. We're all human, but don't hover. Don't try to fix, manage, and control their lives. Let them be, even if they're going off on a spring break with friends, or they're applying for a job, or they're deciding whether or not to, take one job or another, or even a girlfriend or boyfriend. When they ask advice, give it, but don't try and control it. And I can't believe how my dad let me do some things that when I look at my kids now, I would think I would probably never let them do that. Never just let it. Oh, just let him do it. If he falls, he falls. He'll get up. And my dad was pretty darn good at that, kind of good at being hands off, good at being there when I needed him. And that's a hard thing, not to be a helicopter parent. He was not.
And renowned jazz musician, radio and business entrepreneur, just one of my genius friends, good buddy Ed Mann for many, many, many years. The advice that Ed got, well, it could save your life.
Well, that's fairly simple. Do not drink before eating, period. That's it. End of story. But that's a big thing. And, if I were to teach my kids that same thing, I think that they would have to agree. Yeah, Dad, no better advice. You nailed it.
Finally, question number 5. There's usually something your parents said that eventually you find yourself saying and you can't believe you said it. That's question number 5. Bill F. writes, my dad was always asking me what time I'd be home. I had no idea. I'd tell him I had no idea. Well, guess what? I asked my twin daughters the same question 1,000 times, and here's a shock. They also have no idea. One more time, here's Mark Sapelsa.
Oh, there's no question that, those things your dad said, I wound up saying. Never thought I'd do it. If I have to stop this car, we're going to turn around. We're going to turn this car around. I heard that in the 60s and 70s, and I was saying it in the 2000s. So it lasted 50 years in our family. But even positive things like don't sweat the small stuff. My dad used to love to say that. And, in the end, I think there are times when I wish my dad did sweat the small stuff. I think in his business world, if he'd have sweat the small stuff, he might have had a happier ending with his career. And, but the bottom line is so many times we sweat the small stuff, and then what? A month later, a year later, we barely remember it. And so I don't think I necessarily say to them, don't sweat the small stuff, kids. But there is a little bit of that advice that comes out periodically when I'm asked. And it's a good piece of advice because, man, we drive ourselves crazy with small stuff that really, in the long run, in the big picture, does not freaking matter.
And what about Dr. Sam? He said and writes, did you remember to change the oil? After 8 years of college and changing my oil for the first time, my father and brother were quite amused that I also didn't replace the filter. Mind your P's and Q's was in there too, reminding them of the fictitious little boy in Heg Switch and his foolhardy behavior leading to all kinds of malady. I can tell you as a good friend of Dr. Sam, even as brilliant as he is as a veterinarian, he doesn't understand half the words he wrote in that final sentence. He does want to point out, though, that he deeply misses his dad, who died in December 16th of 2016. And I had a chance to meet him and get to know him. I bet he was a good man. And if you're riding in a car with John, well, you could have been riding in a car with John's dad.
Oh, man, I think in the car when I'm driving, and these are, boy, my father would just talk to drivers and tell them what they were doing wrong and what they should be doing. Here's the right way to drive. Here's what you did wrong. And it is amazing to me that every day I get in the car, both my wife but my son both know this. They just know that I'm like, no, please, go ahead. You don't need your signal. Why would you show me which way to go? Why would you tell me? Why would you give me any clue as to which way you were going to turn? When you have that, why use it? So I have, or the, oh my God, the light is not going to get any greener. It will not turn a brighter shade of green. That means go. I am my father in the car when I'm driving.
So who gets the last word here? I'm going to give it to Mark Giangreco because, I know him to be a great dad of his 3 sons. And this is sort of amusing, at least to me, but a few friends got together for a goodbye dinner for Mark a week or so ago, which made me laugh because, well, he's not going anywhere. And Mark Giangreco, in talking about dads, I think he sums it up nicely here.
There's no deeper emotion, for me anyway, to see your sons become a better father to their kids than I think I was to them.
All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed our Father's Day Spectacular here. And I want to thank all the dads again. If you want to go over your notes on who actually showed up and who contributed here, again, it's all in the show notes at the end of this episode, wherever you're listening. And wherever you listen, I hope you'll subscribe, rate, and review. And give your dad the Father's Day present he really wants, and that is for you to show him how to find a podcast, listen to a podcast, and specifically this podcast. Download Live from My Office and subscribe for your dad so he never misses an episode. Yep, hold on. What's that? A phone call now? All right, Live from My Office now happy, relatively speaking, to pick up the phone because President Joe Biden is with us. Hello, sir.
Hey, great to be on the Stan Cockatoo podcast, man. What's it called? Light a fire in my orifice? What do you got?
Close. It's
close. In the ballpark, man.
It's live from my
church,
office.
wrong pew.
Yes, sir. So, sir, you've got to be tired after just returning from your first trip abroad since taking office. I mean, overall, how'd it go?
Well, just, I had a few extra Red Bulls, man. It went great. Went really great. Yeah, America's back. I've been telling everyone over there, America's never been stronger. In fact, I looked over my shoulder, man. I said, hey, look, America's back. That's a dad joke you can use this weekend.
Yeah, I like it. Wow.
Oh, yeah, you tell him, Sleepy Joe, Mr. Tough Guy right here.
Oh, wait a second. Is this Donald Trump?
Miss me yet, Cochran? Oh, shut up, you tangerine windbag. Get lost. This is my internal review thing.
Listen, it's okay, sir. So former President Trump, happy belated birthday. You turned 75 on the 14th, that right?
Thank you. Yes, I did. Thanks for mentioning that.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think my kids could have made a little more of an effort to celebrate it. None of them remembered. I'm talking Aaron, Bronson, Ivy, Tina.
Sir, do you remember your children's names?
Of course I do. Don Jr.
Yeah.
That's the easy one.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best name to remember, too. It's a really good.
That's what everybody
tremendous
says.
name.
Yeah, everybody's saying that.
Then I know there's the one that starts with E. I just said it. What did I say? Etzel?
Yes,
whatever.
I think that was it. Yep.
I only remember him because his wife's the only in-law with halfway decent plastic surgery. And then there's Tanya. No, Timpani. Let's call her Timpani. She doesn't count. Second marriage accident, baby. And then we got little Billy. Or is it Bobby?
No, it's neither.
You know what? Let's just call him Butt. I forget his name. Butt. So sad.
Oh,
poor guy. You got to remember so many damn names. Hoo-ah!
What?
Was it just me, or did you hear Al Pacino on the line?
What is happening to this phone line? Finally, sir.
What is going on?
Sir, how is Father's Day shaping up for you?
Hopefully it's going to be 18 holes and none of the people mentioned above.
That's nice.
No, seriously, I'm not looking for anything big, okay? I don't ask for much. Very humble guy. Maybe just a parade and a Woodstock-sized festival. Turn it into an anti-mask, anti-vax, stop the steal rally.
Yeah.
And when Mike the My Pillow guy brings me on stage, I told him he can introduce me as the new father of our country. Because frankly, and be honest, I'm the one that really saved our country. I saved it. Not George Washington. He didn't save it.
He didn't?
We should never have named him father of our country. You can't be father of the country and have a wife as ugly as Martha Washington.
Oh,
have you seen her?
Here we go.
You'd never catch me walking around with someone like that on my arm.
Mm-hmm.
Butterface Martha, we like to call her.
That's not.
Yeah, she makes Don Jr.'s girl's facelift look nice. What's her name? Kimberly Gargoyle?
I think it's Guilfoyle.
Whatever.
All right, we got to move on. Now back to you, President Biden. President Biden? President Biden!
What? Is it time? Jello time yet?
No.
Jilly?
Jilly brings your Jello.
Oh,
not yet, but good news about
we're
your
still
son.
talking to Cockatoo.
Yes, good news about your son, Hunter. Apparently he's found his calling as a painter. I've talked to some art experts. They say he's very talented. He could sell his artwork for as much as maybe $75,000 to $500,000.
How about that? That does his pop proud. I tell you that. In his art, he's very talented, very impressive kid, and he's gonna fetch the big bucks, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying he's the next Vincent Van Blow, man.
Oh, God.
In all fairness, you should be very proud, Sleepy Joe. Did you hear me? I'm complimenting him, Cochran.
Yes.
Hunter is bigly talented. And frankly, from my observation, the secret to what makes him such a great artist is that he mixes beautiful, vibrant colors in just the right amount of bong water. Oh, shut the hell up, man.
Well, that's just about enough. Thanks for calling, Mr. President.
That's soon to be reinstated, Mr. President. Hey, in your dreams, you orange comb-overed lug nut. Temper.
Thanks for calling, sirs.
Later, loser.
All right, we're way late to get out of here. You might be saying, Steve, nobody's keeping track of how long you're on. What do you mean you're late? Well, I've really got to pee. All right, maybe too much honesty. What am I going to do? I've already said it. I want to thank Ross Cochran, the executive producer. And the guy that puts this together all the time, it would never be up for you to listen without Ross. And I meant what I said at the top of the show. My kid is the best dad I've ever seen. That's pretty special. And son, thank you for marrying Lauren and having Abigail and Isaac. I think it's your finest work, even better than this episode of Live from My Office. Again, you can listen everywhere you find podcasts on Apple, Spotify, and CochranShow.com. And we will have those extensive show notes, including questions that you can ask your own dad this weekend if you want to run them by your dad. Those same questions we ask the dads you heard here. That's it. I'm Steve Cochran. I hope you have a happy Father's Day. I hope you're looking forward to it. I'll just leave it at that. And we'll see you next time on Live from My Office.
30 years plus on the airwaves, you have turned your dial to me. Now you're tuned into my podcast. It's Live from My Office, Steve. From Ithaca, New York, to Carolina South, W. Cochran Steve. From Minneapolis and then Chicago twice, top-rated shows achieved. Sit back, relax, and now listen to my show. When or wherever you are, 'cause you're on the go. A-list celebs with some laughs and great info. Live from my office, the Steve Cochran Podcast Show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No better place to be. Yeah, 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 yeah. Subscribe and like for free. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Live from my office, Steve. So glad you're with me. It's Live from my office, Steve.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Support the show by subscribing wherever you're listening and by telling your friends about it. Follow Steve on all social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And make sure you check out this episode's show notes for relevant information discussed during the conversations. You can also email the show directly at thecochranshow@gmail.com with any questions or comments. And that's the best place to tell us about your favorite nonprofit so we can make sure we mention them on the next episode. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event. And occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to CochranShow.com for more.